Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Course Correction here on Between Us Girls with me, your host, Michelle. I am so busy right now, and I just need to take a break. But I'm not going to take a break from you guys. I'm just going to take a break from things that don't serve me. I think that's really the most important thing. If it's not something that's going to make me feel fulfilled or help me accomplish any of my goals, then I ain't talking about doing it. But this week, I have a really great guest, Chris Ward Jr., who is the breakthrough mentor and also has a really great grasp on emotional intelligence and how to love yourself. So that is why I wanted to talk to him, because I saw him big upping self-care for dads, and I was like, that's new. I had never seen that before. And honestly, in my 16 years with my dad, I never really noticed him doing anything just for himself. But now that I have been doing the morning vibe and working on my spirituality and coming into my own awareness, I now know that what the things that my dad was doing were for himself. So if you want to find out what self-care for dads is really about, keep listening. Chris Ward is going to give us some tools to take away, and he's just going to really share his story. And I'm really, really, really proud of him because, when you hear what he came from to what he's done now, it's like you are a growth warrior. And y'all know that's my thing. I love, love, love people who have been through so much and are still standing. And that's really the basis of course correction is I'm talking to these people who I feel like are where I'm trying to go. So I'm trying to find out how they got there. And it's not just for me, it's for you too. Because we don't always have the tools. We don't always have the how. And when we see people, like we're looking at somebody on Instagram and going, man, this person is exactly what I want to do with myself. I wish I was there already. Well, remember that person has to start somewhere. So give yourself a little bit of credit and give yourself some grace and enjoy the episode. So hello and welcome, yes, to Course Correction. I am here with a very special guest. If you're watching on video, you can see him. He is waiting for us to introduce him. We have Chris Ward Jr. here with us. He is a life strategist. I found him, you guys, on Instagram. He was talking about self-care for dads. So I got super excited and I was like, we must talk. So he is here with us today. So yes, Chris, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me so much. I am really honored. I don't even know how this really happened. I don't even know how we found each other in this way, but hey, it was meant to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So I usually just begin, well, the girls and I used to begin. I do have wine here with me today. It's been a long time
Okay.
since I had wine. So I
Okay.
just bought this Fiesta Lindemans Chardonnay. We're going to see how good it is. Let me see what the alcohol content is on this.
Okay, gotta get right.
Yeah, it's 13.5% alcohol. So that's not too bad.
Hmm.
Okay. First question. Let me get
Okay.
it right. What is your zodiac sign so that I can properly stereotype you?
Oh my goodness. Are we gonna really go into the zodiac signs? Oh
Not
my
to stay
goodness.
there, but it's a must that I know.
I'm a Leo.
Okay. Okay, my dad was a Leo. He was a good dude.
Okay. All right. Shout out to Dad. Thank you. Thank you, Dad, for giving a good example for Leos out there.
Yeah. I mean, he was a tough guy, but I mean, he had his real soft ways too. How okay, so yeah, tell me how you got started and just like what you're about and, like share how you kind of founded this idea of self-care for dads and whatnot.
For sure. So again, my name is Chris Ward Jr. I live in New Jersey, and I have two amazing little boys. I have a beautiful wife who is also she's a business owner. She owns her own salon. I guess my background comes from just growing up in a single parent household where my mom was I wouldn't say she was the dad. I know a lot of people say that, but she was just a strong woman who knew how to develop people. And the first people she wanted to develop was her sons. And I was the first, right? I was
Yeah.
the first, and so she made sure that we treated our life like a project. Like
Mm,
if we were project managers, the biggest project, the most valuable project in the world was our life, and how would we incorporate some of the things that would influence our community, influence our goals, our career, but most importantly, influence ourselves, right? Self care and emotional intelligence. She was already talking about emotional intelligence before that term was
yeah, before
coined.
it became a wave. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know it back then, but I'm so thankful that she did that because it allowed me to grow into the person I am today. Knowing who I am, knowing how to function and adapt to any situation that I'm in, and most importantly, be able to effectively communicate how I feel emotionally, so that it stimulates not only myself but my wife. It stimulates her mentally and spiritually, and those are the things that I believe a lot of men have a hard time doing. They have a hard time communicating what their emotional triggers are, and actually saying that they need help, and really getting the care that they need. And yeah, that's pretty much where my mission is to help. Really, is helping marriages, of course,
Yeah.
helping people who not even just marriages, who wants to be in. If you want to be in a relationship, period, right?
Anybody. Yeah.
Anybody, if you want to be in a relationship, whether that's at your job or that's in your community or that's in your home, there's some key steps that you have to take to be effective in that relationship. And so that's been my mission. My mission is to educate people and coach them, and do different things to get them to where they need to go.
Okay, so now I know why we connected, because
Okay.
that has been my recent mission with the course correction, is to change my life. And by
Mm,
that, I mean uh, be more intentional in my parenting and just, in my everyday, because
yeah.
I was kind of in a place where I felt bad. It
Mm,
was like, oh, everything sucks. Everything sucks. Well, everything doesn't suck, right? It's your
yeah.
mindset that sucks, or it's your attitude that sucks. So when I started looking at that, I'm like, oh no. So I'm giving these same bad tools, or not bad, but I'm not giving my kids the right tools so that they don't do this also. Kind
Yeah.
of breaking that generational wound there up and changing the course of it. Because like you're saying, like in your house, emotional intelligence was key.
For
That's
sure.
how your mom operated. That's just not how we grew up.
For
So
sure.
that's what I'm trying to teach my kids. I even said last week that I was going to start a chart system. So when everybody, like if you go through something or something makes you mad or however you feel, because, we don't have the good governor that says, wait, you shouldn't do that. So that's what I'm trying to teach them now. So we're going to stop, take note of how we feel, and then we'll all come together and discuss like kind of what happened that week. And give my little girl a chart. She's like 6, so just tell her, were you mad, how did you feel, like
Yeah.
to kind of train her in that way. Because my son's 14, so that means that he and I can get together and talk, and he
For
can
sure.
write out his feelings, and we can talk about how he reacted to certain things. But for her, she'll need something different.
For
So, like,
sure.
how have you taught your kids? How have you used what your mom taught you? And what have you given your kids as tools to recognize their emotional triggers and to just use emotional intelligence better?
Oh, that's a great question, and that's awesome that you're doing that with your kids. Our kids are actually in the similar age range where
Mm.
my son, he's 13 years old, and my youngest son, he's 5 years old. So what we've been doing is something that I call it your breakthrough, right? So a lot of people out here, they know me as the breakthrough mentor. That's what they call
Mhm.
me. And
Okay.
so to have breakthrough, there's certain steps that you have to go through. And so for my children, to teach them the emotional intelligence arena, they have to be more self-aware of who they are. So we focus a lot on who they say they are, who they think they are, and what they believe, and then we actually challenge it.
Okay.
All right, so we challenge those beliefs.
Okay.
All right, we have the challenge, right? Because that's where growth happens, is when you're challenged. And so for my 13-year-old, I had to challenge him. He has auditory processing disorder,
Okay.
and for him, what do you call it? Sarcasm sometimes goes way over his head. It's like
Yeah.
he's like, what? He's like,
Right.
he's taking it literally, and it's like, no, that's sarcasm. And I asked him one day, I said, so do you
Is he on
believe
the
that you?
spectrum?
Yeah, so we're uh he's at a point, he's in a weird space. So he is not what they would say over the edge.
Yeah.
He just has certain areas that trigger
Yeah.
that. So you can have a full blown conversation with him, and you would never know that he has that
Yeah.
processing disorder. But there are certain terminologies and vocabularies and situations that trigger it, and then you're like, oh, he just didn't get that. Like that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Why that didn't connect? And so we finally, it went from us thinking that he had ADHD to really figuring out that this is what it is. And so using charts like you're doing, it's
Yeah.
actually very, very, very helpful, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah. So for our kids, what we started doing is they have to tell us who they are and they have
Mm.
to describe who they are. Even my
Okay.
5-year-old. All right, who are you? What does it mean to be you? And
Okay.
then we challenge it. So what if I told you we're this? How would you respond?
Mm.
And what if I told you we're that? How would you respond? What if I told you your
Good
parents were
training.
this?
Yeah.
And so when we do that, it's so funny. My 5-year-old, just to give you an example, he said a bad word that he didn't know was a bad word, right? Heard it from a kid on the bus that he really likes. He wants to be friends with,
Yeah.
and he said this bad word, and I shared what the word was. And I said, listen, you can't say those type of things. Have you ever heard your parents say that? I'm like, no. Have you ever
Right.
heard your cousin say that? No. I said, so why would you say a word that you don't understand?
Mm.
And then he looked at me. He's like, I don't know that. I just thought. I said, yeah. So think about it. If you think it's fun, but it hurts someone else, is it as much fun as you think it is?
Mm.
And he just, he was sad, of course. Let me tell you what this boy did. I was just so blessed by this. About a couple of hours later, he came up to me and he said, Dad, I wish I had this special superpower. I said, what special superpower? To be able to rewind time. I said,
Oh.
what? I said, why? He said, because I would have never said that to the boy name was Ethan. I would never said that to Ethan. I said, why is that? He's like, because you shouldn't say things that hurt people's feelings in that way. I
Yeah.
said, yeah. And he just hugged me and I'm like, wow. Right.
Yeah.
He understood the concept. So when we teach our children concepts,
Mm.
instead of trying to teach them this, it has to be this way, it has to be that way. When you teach them concepts, it allows them to challenge their own thoughts, which is the first step of self-awareness, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I'm teaching the boys right now, how to challenge their thought process and see if it's as true as what they think it is.
So I think that's a really great thing that you guys are doing because I feel like that makes for really good adults
Hmm.
because they're able to think outside the box. There's a lot of people who grow up with like really stringent parents who, I mean, I'm not trying to knock religion, but sometimes that can bring in an additional strictness to thought processes and what you need to be. And the thing is that people are the ones who define that, just like you're doing with your kids. It's up to you to make that definition.
Hmm.
So, listening to what someone else says you have to be is going to take you not very far. So, yeah, I really think it's a good thing that you're doing there. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, how did you become that person? Like, I know you said your mom was
Yeah.
instrumental in that, but what did you go through that made you this self-aware? Because I know there was something, because there's always something that takes you like, I get it now.
For sure, for sure. Well, my dad was my hero, of course, but he quickly became my villain at an early age, just because of the abuse he put on my mom. And that type of abuse, it could, any kid that has ever seen it or experienced it, there's things that they just can't describe with words, but they know the feeling. And growing up, when my mom had the courage to get away and start from ground zero, and I watch her build herself up, I say, you know what? My mom will never have to feel that way ever again.
Yeah.
She'll never have to feel that way ever again because she's never going to be told that a man in her life is abusive or messed up or doesn't care about his family. I'm going to make sure that it stops with me. So
Mm.
whatever abuse, whatever that mindset, whatever alcoholism or whatever that was going on during that time, yeah, it stops with me. And
So
yeah,
you made a choice to break the cycle, of abuse in your life, in your DNA, in your family. And I think that's really like what I'm trying to focus on is, I mean, and thinking about this, and this is going to get it probably a little bit deep for people, but and thinking about molestation of kids, and if I can, like, really, if I just sit here and think, I can pinpoint probably every person that I'm related to
mhm,
or that I know that has had some interaction with somebody that was inappropriate as a child. I think as a community, we have to really start looking at that so we can break that up because that aids in so many other issues for us, especially young women. And I know men too. That's why I think what you're doing is good because a lot of men don't look at trauma that they've experienced and try to heal themselves
yeah.
and become self-aware because it's hard to look at those traumas and accept that that kind of happened to you. So have you ever struggled with
self-acceptance ever in your life?
Of course. I mean, when your dad's not around and then you're spending time with other people who have their dads and they're rooting them on, you're looking at yourself like, why wasn't I good enough?
Mhm.
Why wasn't I good enough to have this experience? And then, you know, w- something about our family, we're go-getters. I can't even front. Everybody in my family is a go-getter. And I said, okay, I could either look at this as a bad thing or I can see this as an advantage.
Mhm.
What's the advantage I have over the kids who have two children, who have two parents?
Right.
And I started saying, well, they're not going to outwork me. They're not going to outwork me. They're not going to be able to adapt the way that I'm learning to adapt. So I started looking at the positive and optimistic side of things. And that's when my breakthrough started to happen. When I start letting go of that pain and letting go of trying to not be like my father, I actually started to refocus it. I started to say, well, what type of man do I want to become? And what's the framework to get there?
Yeah.
Uh, and I give a lot of credit to my mom being a project manager in the tech field. She would always say, when you're learning something new, there's always a framework to it.
Mhm.
You may not have all the skills just yet, but if you understand the framework, you can work inside of that and you'll develop the skills.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put myself in positions where I was helping teenagers, I was helping kids, and then eventually, a lot of my friends started to reach out to me. It's like, hey, you know how it is. Hey, I want to talk to this girl.
Yeah.
I want to get, I want to get this girl, man. What should I do? And I would say, well, what makes you different from everybody else?
Yeah.
And they will always go to the surface things. Well, I got a nice car, I got money, I'm good. I said, yeah. So there's a million other people in this world that have the same thing.
Right.
What really makes you different? You got to dig deep.
Mhm.
And so I used to give information out like that to my friends, and they end up getting the girl, and then they end up losing the girl because they didn't take my advice to keep going on self-awareness and digging deep.
Yeah.
But the crazy part is my mom, she saw something in me in public speaking and presenting to people and influencing people. And she put me at the age of 13, she put me in front of 50 plus people in an auditorium to do a contest to raise money for kids for education.
Yeah.
And I had to speak on the topic of either in education. And as I was writing this, I'm trying to write it. I couldn't write it for some reason, and something was tugging on me. Like, I don't want to write about education. I want
Yeah.
to write about identity. I want to write about passion. I want to write about purpose. I'm 13 years old, and this is what's going through my head.
But it was
And
coming to you from somewhere else, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I
yeah,
love
you know what?
wow,
Let's
I love
go.
it.
So it was really about that. I was like, you know what? If I have a chance, I was like, even if I don't win, if I can, if I could just get this message out, I just want
Mm.
to see what it does. So I end up saying it, and that was my first time in a public speaking arena where it was that many people at that age. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and I was nervous. I mean, when I was nervous, so I looked at one person in the crowd, and I just focused like I was talking to that one person,
Yeah.
and she just reminded me of like my grandmother. So it's like I was talking to my grandmother,
Mhm.
and I started off with, "Who am I?" Like that was the first thing I said.
Wow. At 13,
13
man.
years old, I said, "Who am I? I'm more." I actually remember the beginning of it is I'm more than a barcode. I was talking about your social security. I'm more than a barcode. I'm more than a name. I'm more than a birth certificate. I'm more than this. I'm the brother to this. I'm the brother of the son to this. I'm just really just pouring it out.
Yes.
By the time I opened my visual to see everyone else, grown men and women were in tears,
Of course,
crying.
because giving them that love from inside of you. Ah,
I said, "What is going?" I was like, "Oh, I must have did something wrong," because
oh, you did something right.
the beautiful part is I didn't win. I
Mm.
didn't win. I got second place, but the first place winner walked up to me and she said, and she was amazing. Her speech was amazing. She said, "Wow, you should have won, but the only reason you didn't is because you disregarded the topic that they gave you.
Okay,
Like, you,
right?
you just did your own thing." But she said, she said, "I thought that was cool because you got your message out."
Yes, and that's the most important thing. Like that's the message that I've been getting lately is just share your message. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is that you feel like you need to share with the masses, because I think in spirituality or whenever you become self-aware, you do start getting creative ideas about how to share the truth about spirituality or awareness or whatever it is, and self-love. And it's just make sure that you are sharing it, because when it's coming to you, it's not just for you, it's for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. And I
You're
think that's what's good about what you're doing, because you have a platform now to continue to share that same message and touch people on the same level that you did initially. And like, you had the perfect mom for you. Like, your experience was set up already before you came here,
for sure.
but had the perfect mom for what you want to do. Like, to be taught emotional intelligence at such a young age, when you know that's not what we're learning in school, and most families don't know that. What a blessing for you to have that. You know, like, it's really, I think it has kept you focused on what your goal is since you were a kid. And I think that's just beautiful, because there's so many who don't have that. So you really are an asset to men out here, because my son actually came to me last week and he was telling me that he wants to be a really good dad because he hasn't had that experience.
For
And
sure.
actually, he made comments about me too. But of course, he doesn't realize that as a single mom, I have to make moves that he won't always understand. You know what I mean?
For
And it's
sure.
not from a place of I'm trying to neglect you or I don't love you. It's I'm working. I'm working, but I'm also trying to come and nurture you. So there's a lot. Like, I'm working on that too, trying to give more femininity, because I'm
Yeah.
always in this masculine space of gotta hustle, hustle, hustle. But I
Yeah.
don't spend a lot of time in my femininity. But he needs somebody like you that can show him what it is to really kind of like be a man, and
Yeah.
especially one that's aware of his feelings, because he's in this place of, you know, teenage hormones,
Yeah.
and already we haven't always had the right tools to control ourselves when it comes to I feel. And so I'm really hoping that he can come to a place of self-awareness so that he can stop himself from making bad decisions when it comes to what he feels, because your reactions, they propel your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And with that, I call that hustle and bustle that you're on. That's that single parent mother grit.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing that can. I got my grit from my mom. I realized
Yeah.
that watching her hustle and do her thing,
Somebody just
and
knock on the door.
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
That grit is so important. So even if you're going to be nurturing your son even more and giving that sensitive side to things, he's looking at that grit. It's going to serve him well. He's going to need it because he's going to be challenged every single day as an
Yeah.
adult, right? Challenged every day, every single day. But there's something that you said about self-awareness that um, there's steps. So anyone that's listening to this right now, I hope you are grabbing a piece of paper and pen because I'm going to give you what what steps you need to kind of go into this and how it actually affects you today. So make sure you go grab that piece of paper and pen and use a tablet, whatever you're using right now, go get it right now. So here are the steps. The steps are this. So in any relationship, whether you're married, not married, you're trying to build a relationship with your children, build a relationship with community, it first starts with you. And it first starts with me, right? So on that level of self-awareness, you got to understand your story. When you understand your story, you understand where your triggers are and what caused you to fall and what propelled you to move forward. And as you understand those triggers in your life, you then move into the area of self management. Because once you're aware, you can self manage. When you start seeing things that trigger those specific emotions, you know how to self manage, you know how to communicate effectively. And here's an example. The way my wife grew up in a big household is completely different than the way that I grew up. And what may look like anger to her may be frustration for me. But if I can't communicate that effectively to her that no, that's not anger, that's frustration, then it's more friction that happens. And when that friction happens, um, all of your communication lines are now falling down, and now you have a problem. Same thing with our children. Same thing with our coworkers, right? When managers come and they try to tell you certain thing and they don't do it effectively, and then you're like, yo, why are you on my back? Like, I'm doing my job. You don't see me working out here. I'm doing my job, and you on my back, right? And that comes from that person not being self-aware enough to communicate effectively the feeling that that the emotion that's coming up, right? Once you are able to own it, just even a little bit, that self-awareness to self-management, it then moves into social awareness and relationship management. Those are the four sectors that if we own it, if we learn it and we dive into it, we have better relationships with not only other people but with ourselves. And so we can bring that person to the table, and that's what I've strived for every single day. Um, my wife and I just did a podcast on interracial dating and marriage, and some of the things we went through, and specifically sex, right? Specifically sex. Like,
Yeah.
listen, there's ways to stimulate your wife, and it doesn't have to be physical, right? Right. But because you haven't worked on yourself enough, you don't even know you have access to that type of tool to stimulate your wife mentally, have her thinking about you without even touching her. Okay.
I hope y'all are listening to this.
So those are the things, those are the tools I teach and I coach people through, you know. I have a course online that we work through that self-awareness step because it is the foundation of everything when it comes to relationships. And I had a client just recently reach out to me. She says, you know, I want my marriage to survive. I'm fighting for my marriage. And I said, well, what happens when you chase something? What usually happens when you chase something?
It runs away, child.
It runs away. So I said, instead of trying to make your marriage survive, why don't you make your marriage thrive? And she said, thrive? How can I make my marriage thrive? I said, but it starts with you. Where are your boundaries? Where is your effective communication? How have you owned your own story? Because sometimes you have to be the representation of what the marriage could look like or what the relationship could look like, right? So I try to do that with my sons, right? Just yesterday, the one who has the auditory processing disorder, you know, he was saying, thank you so much, Dad, for dropping me off at the gym. Thank you so much, Dad, for doing this. I love you. Thank you. And my wife looked at me like, who is this boy? He is speaking so clearly, and it's because it's repetition, it's consistency, it's action. You got to act on it. You can't wait and think it's going to just change. So every day I do something different with my son to build his momentum and his consistency so that he knows that he can do it. And once he believes that he can do it, his breakthrough just starts to work out.
Right, because that's really, I guess it's at the core of it, especially when you're working through your self-awareness or you're having an awakening or anything like that. It's that belief that you can do it, because it's going to be hard, especially when you're changing, you know, like, because I know for me, it was like, I was kind of stuck in that negativity.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier to be there. But whenever I was just noticing, okay, this is really making me mad for what? Why am I mad at this? Or why am I irritated by this? And then, especially when it comes to my kids, because being that, you know, I'm the only one working, I was tired getting home, frustrated, needing my space. Well, I had to tell them I need my time, because I can't give you what you want from me if I don't have it. And because I wasn't able to get myself those moments, and this is like maybe 2-3 months I've been working on this. So I'm like, I finally made it. I mean, of course I started working on that, but I was having to tell them, I love you. I'm not trying to cut you off, but I need some too. Because if I'm giving you me and I'm giving everybody else me, I'm not giving me any of me, you know? And I think it just really goes back to that, understanding that it's going to take time for you to get through that first few minutes of life when you're changing, because it's different. You know, it's going to be easy to fall back into that, fuck, I'm angry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't have to do that. But that's why I said I wanted to stop doing that, because that was how I grew up. I didn't want my kids to continue to grow up that way with a frustrated parent who was just like, oh, it just was me. Because everything doesn't have to be that way. I mean, things are still going to happen. Life still goes on. So it's like in the understanding how to deal with that sucks. You know what I mean? You can't stay in it. Like we just found out, like you were talking about your son, that my daughter has a significant genetic deletion. So it's leaving her with some learning and intellectual disability. So it's going to make it a little bit more tough for her. She's 6, right? So she's
Hmm.
supposed to, at this point, they think she's supposed to know how to read, and she's supposed to start doing addition and subtraction. Well, baby girl is still trying to figure out what the stuff it looks like and what it's called,
Yeah.
and so it's going to take more repetition for her, like you said. So it means that I now have to be more creative in what I do at home, because my son is like, intellectual genius. So I didn't really have to do a lot. Of course, he had some struggles in math, but he's so quick with everything else. It was like, you got it. So whenever
Yeah.
I get pregnant with her, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a breeze. And
Hmm.
it has not been,
Mm.
because she just is different. And this experience is teaching me something too, though, you
Yeah.
know. And I know you probably feel some of that too, and knowing that you guys have some struggles too, trying to figure out how to teach and how to learn and how to retain information and all that. So yeah, I mean, it's a process, because I'm having to go through all of that while I'm also changing myself too. So that means
Yeah.
that this was the first test I had that said, how you going to react to this?
For sure. First
And
opportunity.
yes, because I mean, I've been saying I'm different. I'm
Hmm.
better. I'm moving through the motions. I'm not letting these things that happen in life take me down. And then as soon as I'm like, yes, they're like, just want you to know something real quick.
Yeah.
Boom. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I was a little bit down, but I was proud of myself, because I
Yeah.
was able to receive it as what it was, just a part of the experience.
And that's a huge part. What you just said right there. Just a part of the experience. It shows your growth, right, from your mindset. And it's
Right.
if you want to break through mindset, if you're listening to this right now and you want to break through mindset, follow what you just did right there.
Yeah.
Just accept to what you hear, what you're hearing, receive it, but then say, okay, this is not the whole truth, because I have a part in this now.
Right.
What can I infuse or into this relationship that develops it into a place of opportunity and optimism and positivity? Because who knows, your daughter may by the time she gets to be 21, 22 years old, she may be inspiring 3, 4, 5 million people because of what she's experienced, because
Exactly.
her mom saw how special she was, right, and gave her the
Don't you
time.
make me cry.
Yeah, cause that no, you listen. You should get a round of applause, because it's 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 that type of action that changes a life,
Yeah.
right? It's that type of action that changes a life. I was my last podcast, which came out yesterday. I just talked about how on a daily basis we have about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day,
Mm.
right? 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Out of those thoughts, 80% of those thoughts are negative.
Mm.
That's a lot of negative talk to yourself, right?
Yes.
80% is negative. Now, check, this is the crazy part though. On average, those thoughts that you do have, you repeat those same thoughts 95% of the time. So
That's
imagine
all the time almost.
all the time. So for you to even have a positive thought, that tells you how much of a warrior you are. That tells you how much of a badass you are. It tells you that, listen, I'm not just a mom, I'm a superhero, I'm an educator. What else you want to put on my title? I got all the titles in the world, because guess what? I'm fighting for my baby girl. I'm making sure that she knows who she is, and nobody ever gonna change that from her, because she's uniquely made.
Okay, we can quit. We can go home now. The word has been dropped.
That's it.
And I really
Uniquely made.
appreciate that. Like,
Yeah.
that's why I felt like, man, I want to talk to him, because the way that you were sharing, I was like, that's love. And
Sure.
that's kind of the core of this whole thing, is love, because it starts with the self-love, because you have to really care for yourself, especially while you're becoming self-aware, because you got to look at all the ugly too,
Yes, you do.
and you got to give yourself a hug every now and again. And it took me a minute to say that, because
Yeah.
for a while I was negative self-talk, and even sometimes still I catch myself thinking bad thoughts, and I will have to tell myself, stop,
Yeah.
because that's not true,
Yeah.
and just redirect it. That's why I was saying it's so hard, because, well, I won't say it's hard. I choose for it to be fun and easy. That's what my friend Patience is telling me I need to say.
Okay.
But
I like that.
yeah, she is on point. Like, we had our event last week here in Houston, and she brought her tarot cards out there, and she was reading for people. But I mean, it was a good vibe.
Yeah.
I have met so many people since I became this new version of myself, or reinvented myself, or reinvigorated. I've met so many people on the same wave as me. So that's,
Yeah.
I think, why I was drawn to you, because we're on the same wave. You know what I mean? Like, I was really inspired just in listening to you say that dads need self-care, because it's just not something that you hear a lot.
Oh, it's big. It's big. And what you're saying is, we're both quantum right now. We're both on each
Yeah.
other's radar, right? And the beautiful part about that is when it comes to self-care and dads, it is so countercultural
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, what are you talking about? Self-care. Like why would a dad need self-care? Because the perception of what self-care is all about is like, okay, let me go get a haircut,
Right.
let me go shoot pool, go to the bar, drink a beer, whatever. No, I'm actually talking about something completely different. I'm talking about an emotional renewal. An
Mm-hmm.
emotional renewal that not only affects the heart, but affects the mind, right? Impacts the mind. And then as that mind is impacted and is renewed and cleared, now you can start to see things that not only benefit others, but now benefits you as well. And what I mean by that is this. So I try to do my best to schedule 1 hour each day for alone time.
Mm.
And as you know, having kids is very difficult to find
Right.
alone time, right? But I said, okay, so when are the kids sleep? And when can I really get my alone time? I said, well, has to be the morning time. Now I'm a night bird, right?
Yeah, too.
And I said, okay, if I can change my habits of being a night bird to an early morning person, I could get that alone time. So now I have that framework. And so every morning I wake up without an alarm clock, 6 in the morning now. 6 in the morning. That's all right.
She's sticking a note under the door.
I love that. Creativity. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Keep
I
knocking on
love it.
that
I don't
door.
try to stop her from any of that. I want her to
She gonna get there
fly as high as she needs to. But yeah,
for sure.
your
That
friend.
alone time. Yeah.
So I was just saying this morning, or maybe last night, maybe I was thinking it. I don't remember. I talked to so many people. But I was saying I'm going back to the gym in the morning, but I'm gonna have to get up before then so that I can do my meditation and
Yes.
whatever else I need for myself, because I noticed that when I don't go to the gym and because I don't do a whole lot of exercise. I have some hernias that keep me from lifting or whatever, but
Mm,
also a mom issue. But anyhow,
yeah.
so I just go, I do my walking and I just get my pressure up, you know what I'm saying? Not my pressure, but I feel better.
For sure.
And when I don't do it, I just don't feel that good. And I kind of went through, like I was telling you guys, some trauma the last few months. So it kind of stopped me from really stepping into that self-care space that I need to be in.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that, because it reminds me that I said that I was going to start doing this Monday. So that means that now that you and I have talked about it, I have to
Uh-huh.
go. I
Uh-huh.
have to, because then it will help the kids as well to be more, I don't want to say regimented, because I hate that like strict structure, but I need it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I reflect back to a time when I felt my best. And of
Mm,
course, I had, everything organized. I knew where I was supposed to be. I knew what I was about to go do. Everything had its own place and I was chill. I had my time. Of course, I had one kid. So now it's like I'm having to kind of rework it. And yes, it has been 6 years since I had my me time. But I mean, sometimes that's like what it's like for parents.
for
It
sure.
takes a long time for you to kind of adjust to adding a child or when your child has additional needs. So yeah, that alone time is very important. I talked to a guy, and actually I think you would like him. I might try to connect the two of you.
All right, sounds good.
But this is the one that didn't record, but I asked him about self-care, and it was kind of like you said, like grooming and stuff like that. But self-care goes so much deeper than that. When
For
you're
sure.
crying and when you're saying, okay, I feel better, that's self-care. You
Yes,
know, going to take a deep breath, that's self-care.
for sure.
Anything that you say, this is for me. It could be as simple as I want to enjoy that piece of cake. That's self-care. Anything that
Mhm.
is for you.
Brings you into focus,
Yeah,
right? Because
right.
it's hard to be present when there's a lot of distractions, things that distract you emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So, like you said, you want to go to the gym on Monday. I would even take it deeper and schedule. I am just going to walk. in the
Mm,
gym on Monday.
right. Just get there.
I just gonna walk in the gym on Monday, and then that because there's this concept that I've learned that it's called the little gray square box
Mm,
philosophy. It was made famous by, I can't remember the speaker. He talked about drawing this beautiful portrait, and it was a
mm,
huge portrait. People were like, "Wow, that's amazing," and he said, "You can do it too." And all these people just started laughing, like, "There's no way I
yeah.
can do that." He said, "No, let me show you how to get there." He said, "I drew." He said, "How many of you can draw a rectangle or a box?" They all raised their hand. "How many can you color in a box gray?" They all raised
Mm,
their hand. And he said, "That's how I made this portrait. I literally made gray box after gray box after gray box after gray box after gray box. And then eventually it started to form the big picture."
mm,
And I took that to how self-care for people is the same way. It's not doing everything as you that you can to make yourself feel better, but it's literally gaining this little square box, whatever that may be. That might be 30 minutes of writing each day or 10 minutes
mm.
of writing each day. Just your whatever you're feeling doesn't have to make sense. But then that 10 minutes turns into 15, and then it turns into 20, and then you keep doing it every single day. You may even write a book
Yeah,
without even knowing. Right?
absolutely. Yeah. And you said
Mhm.
something that kind of stuck out to me. And I saw somebody on Facebook talking about this. I guess it was maybe a couple days ago, but he said something like, if you need outside motivation, you've already failed. And his verbiage was a little bit off. And so it landed wrong with some people. And they were like, oh, I'm offended. But I think what he meant was really just if you can't find the motivation within yourself to get going,
Mhm.
then it's not going to be long lasting. You know what I mean?
Big facts.
But I kind of mentioned, I hope that I didn't mess that up because I have my hand on the microphone, but I kind of mentioned that the how is kind of what's missing for a lot of people. And you said a really important word when you said, that this guy had explained how he did something. And I think that's what is missing from a lot of personal development. It's, do you want to change your life? I'm just going to tell you, my life is perfect. Well, where's the how? Like,
Mhm.
where's the instruction? And that's what I like about you. You're giving the how as well as the this is what life looks like. You're not just saying I'm great. You're saying this is how I got here. And I think that's really important.
Thank
So,
you. Yeah.
yes, of course. I'm serious. Like when I saw you, I was like, I gotta talk to this guy because I'm just on this journey. I just want to talk to everybody who's doing cool stuff or stuff that I think, man, everybody should be hearing this message or everybody should be understanding how to become more self-aware and take care of themselves, especially men, because I feel like they're always being put kind of on the back burner. And I know people feel like the same about women, but I feel like when it comes to men, maybe there are some things that women get the brunt of, but for men, it's like you're always okay. And that's not true because men
Yeah.
experience a lot of trauma and like going back to like molestation and sexual assault,
Mhm.
it happens to men and boys too. And I think we just
Mhm.
really look at that because that's the healing that people need is, it's okay to have experienced something. You can still grow and be great.
Yeah, that's the difficulty that men have when it comes to expressing themselves in that way, because it's not the normal culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? So someone like myself who will come in and start saying it, they're looking at me like, "Man, what are you talking about, man? I'm out here to make my money. I'm out here to take care of my family, and that's all good. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your family, making good money for yourself, and leaving some type of financial resources for your family. But if you're not present, then financial resources becomes their father. What was the point?
Right.
What was the
Right.
point of doing that? And so self-care, even for myself, when I talk about it so much, I do focus on the how to, because I
Mm-hmm.
realize working in, part of my background, I've worked in higher education for 7 years.
Oh
And
wow.
so I was able to see how people, when they first came in, what they were looking to do, what they were afraid of. And then when they went through the process, who actually helped them with the how to's to get to the goal they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It was very intriguing to me, and I said, you know what? Whenever I share information with people, I want to give them the how to. I want to give them the framework. I want to give them the methods, because if they know how to do it, and I got to thank my mom for this again, right? A strong woman who loved me dearly. Um, Before she left, as she passed away, and she
I
took
was
her
about to
last.
ask you if she was alive because I just want. Give
Yeah.
send me a picture of her. I'm about to put her on my altar. I want her spirit.
Definitely, I will send you a picture of her. Beautiful, beautiful lady. Um, as she took her last breath, all of it made sense.
Mm,
I said, "Oh, okay. You were showing me how to be the best version of myself, not to be the best man that you wanted me to be. You were
yeah,
helping me figure it out because you knew eventually you wouldn't be here one day. And so when you can help someone figure it out with their skill sets and what they have, then intrinsic motivation comes.
hmm
That's where the intrinsic motivation comes from. It's good to have external motivation because it gets you thinking in a different
yeah.
way and creative, but you don't rely on it, of course.
No,
Can't rely on it.
yeah, you can't.
That in, that intrinsic motivation usually comes from someone inspiring you to use what you already have to get closer to your goal or to
Right.
figure out something you've never seen before. So that's always been my mission. I'll continue to do that. Um, what's funny, I'm talking so much about men that women are actually coming to me and saying, "How do you help me?"
Yeah,
Help me. I want to figure out how to. You're not saying just go get the nails done and get the hair done. You're saying something completely different. And so
yeah,
I'm
because
just
it's deeper than
fortunate.
that. You know,
Yeah.
it's so much deeper than the external. Because I really believe in your vibration attracts, you know, what's for you. So if you want to attract this man or whatever you want, you got to get right first.
For
You
sure.
know, I mean, things will still come. But like I was talking to another friend the other day, because like I said, I just keep getting all these people around me who are so smart, so intelligent, so emotionally intelligent, so aware. I'm loving it. Um, but she was like, just saying, oh, so I forgot, lost my train of thought. Hold on. It's the Lindemans. It's the
That's all
Lindemans.
right. That's all right. Because you're one of those special people too. I know you're saying you got a lot of friends that are, experts in this, but you're one of them. You have an energy about yourself that is
Thank
very
you.
authentic. So keep it up for sure.
Yes. I believe that because I believe that authenticity is really the way that you connect with the people who are supposed to receive your message.
Hmm.
Like when I started doing this, when I started podcasting, it was because I thought, man, I really want to share what we talk about with other people because I feel like what we're saying is so bomb. I just
Hmm.
want to share this message.
Yeah.
It evolved so much because I mean now I'm by myself and I'm building other shows, and so it's like it's taken on this whole different thing, and I'm going into my spirituality and I'm sharing the message, and I'm just like, I want people to get on their path, and that's why I started Creative AF, because I want people like myself and you, Black entrepreneurs,
Yes.
who are really trying to scale their business to understand that they can do it, because there's so many people who want to be entrepreneurs, but where's the how? You know what I mean? And that's what we're kind of missing, because my dad even, and he passed away when I was 16 in 2001, but
I'm sorry to hear
he
that.
had, yeah, I mean, it was a long grieving process because I didn't do it at first.
Yeah.
So when I became an adult, I was like, okay, I got to deal with this
Yeah.
because it's so heavy on me. Like, yeah, I'm having wine right now, but I was like a raging alcoholic for a minute
Oh wow.
because I was just fighting myself so much. I didn't want to look at the pain that I was feeling. I didn't want to look at the trauma that I had experienced, all the many sexual assault experiences,
Hmm.
all the bad relationships, everything that I had taken
Hmm.
myself through. See how I said I've taken myself through, because it's definitely true that I
Yeah.
took myself through that because of where I was in my mindset and my life and not dealing with the things that were weighing me down. I mean, that's the place that I'm in right now, is just letting all that go so that I can walk in my truth and just be the person that I'm supposed to be and share the message that is coming to me, because it's not always me. I know I sound crazy in talking to you about that, but sometimes I really do feel like the message that I'm sending to people is coming from a higher power, because I'm supposed to be sharing that information. Like I see numbers all day long and I'm like, oh, gotcha.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I'm finding out too that my mom was into numerology. My mom and dad were doing readings for people at home. And I'm like,
Hmm.
why didn't anybody tell me this? Because when I'm getting all this information, I'm starting to feel like I'm weird,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
instead of knowing that it's already in me, just like it's in everybody. I mean, that intuition is already there for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's the important part of becoming self aware, because you won't know who you are and what you're saying to yourself if you don't get that center. So we just went off on a tangent, but
No, that was good. That was good. For, hopefully, the people are listening because you said a key part, which is building rapport with yourself. And
hmm
I know a lot of people don't understand that concept, and what it really means is when you build rapport with yourself, to build rapport with someone else is what we're doing right now. We're finding common ground. We're understanding each other, and now we're building a relationship. A lot of
Hmm.
people don't have a relationship with themselves. So, when you build a relationship after understanding your emotions, your triggers, your story, which is what you just shared, what
Yeah.
you've been through and what you're going through and how you're going to get through, you build that
Hmm.
rapport with yourself. Now it becomes a tool instead of a burden.
Right.
It becomes a tool of success, a tool of adapting to your environments, a tool to confidence and self-esteem. But most importantly, it becomes a tool to your identity,
Yeah.
and how it's shaped.
Absolutely. Well, this was a great conversation.
Yeah,
I
thank you
had
so
a way.
much.
I'm so glad that we connected too. I can't wait not to use you, but I can't wait to plug you in. Like
Yeah,
if somebody's looking for somebody like you, I can't wait to plug you in. There are people who are doing talks and they're doing, events and they want people to come speak. And if I see something open for you, I will always tag you because
thank
I
you.
want people to be where they're supposed to be. Sometimes I think that whenever I'm connecting with people, they're not always for me, they're for someone else. So if I meet people who, let's say, okay, I've met you, but I'm going to meet somebody who's like, man, I really want to talk to somebody, a guy who's, emotionally intelligent and aware. I'm be like, I know somebody. And then I
Oh, wow.
plug you in and I connect you guys. So that's what this business is really about, is just making dollars pop, black dollars pop. I want to circulate the black dollar. I want to connect us. I want us to really heal our community and, just become more aware so that we can be successful, because so many of us fall because we don't have the right tools,
For sure.
in our toolbox. And that comes from just, coming from households where people didn't have the information that they needed, you
Yeah.
know. So I commend you on making a change and doing something different.
Well, you're amazing, and you're definitely a connector. You're a connector, and that's going to serve you well because in about 5 or 6 years, you're going to see the world changing a little bit,
Mm,
in a way that people who are connectors are the ones that are going to be leading the charge. And so,
absolutely.
so keep connecting, keep developing. I love what you're doing. I'm so honored to even be part of this
Oh,
podcast, and
thank you.
yeah, I'm super honored. I'm super honored, and you just let me know if I can do anything to work with you.
Uh,
Outside of here, let me know. And yeah, and if there's, I'm gonna definitely share your podcast. Make sure people hear it and make sure people connect with it. And I know a lot of dope people too, so maybe there'll be some guests,
yeah.
some guests on your show
Absolutely. I think that's why we connect with people. It's not necessarily so we can have just that connection, but think of all the connections that come from those connections.
for sure.
And that's what this is about. And that's why your emotional intelligence is so important, because it's going to help you in all of your interactions with all of those relationships that you're building. And your network is your net worth. And I really, really believe that. So,
Definitely.
is there anything that you want to tell the audience before we go?
Yeah, I would be honored if your audience would, follow my journey. And if there's something that is valuable to them, to be able to just have a conversation with me. And the best way to find me is on Twitter and Instagram, mainly Instagram. I spend a lot of my time on there. And it's at Chris Ward Jr. Or you could just type in the Breakthrough Mentor. I'll pop right up as well. Um, yeah, just follow me there. Share your message. Is there something I can do to help you out? Contact me. And I actually want to leave them with a how-to,
Okay,
if
go
that's
ahead.
cool with you. It's cool. All right. So
Absolutely. Tell us
yeah,
all.
yeah, how-to. Okay. So we've been talking about self-awareness and self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. I want to give you your first step on how to actually start the journey of self-awareness. So what you're going to do is you're going to find you're going to go to the store, go to the Dollar Tree, wherever you need to go. You're going to buy a book, and a composition book. It's just going to be for you. And in this book, the only thing that goes in here is your story, right? You're going to start with your story from the furthest time that you can remember until present day. Now, when you do this, as you start to write your story, there are going to be points where you feel emotionally hurt or emotionally high. Ask yourself this question: tell me more. And as you ask yourself that question, tell me more, you're going to be able to write deeper, 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 deeper levels of connection in your story. When you get to the part where you are reflecting each week on your story, I want you to start to circle all of your wins. Find out the little wins, even the things that, hey, I made my grandmother smile that day when I said this. That's a beautiful win. I want you to start to circle those things. And as you start to circle those things, then you need another page where you have a page of wins, things where you're winning or you're overcoming. And you're going to have a long list of these wins. Then you're going to find the places where you were hurt, or places where you felt like you had showed failure in your life. And what you're going to do is you're going to star those failures. You're going to star them. And then once you get enough of your failures where you can fill a page, you're going to put another page where it says all of your failures or all of the things that have set you back. And then you're going to ask yourself, how can my wins impact the failures? You're going to build a connection there. Once you start to do that and you build how your wins are actually influencing your failures, you're going to create a new story. And as you create that new story, it's going to look completely different from the first story that you wrote down. And that's how you start your first step to self-awareness.
I hope everybody who's listening just heard that good word. I hope everyone's listening. Even back to like Earl Nightingale, you guys, with personal development, first tool, write your story. You are going to be so successful, Chris. I'm so appreciative of you coming on before you boom. Before you boom, boom, boom. I'm serious. Everybody I talk to, I am hoping for them that they can be the most successful that they ever possibly want to be. Whoever you're trying to talk to, I hope they hear the message, and however many you're supposed to reach in your lifetime, I hope you do that. And whatever growth you're supposed to experience in this human experience, I hope that you receive it, because I know I'm tired of coming here.
And to you as well. We're gonna grow together. So when I'm walking in this journey and I see you on the other side, I'm not gonna be surprised, because you have that energy, you have that welcomeness. So thank you so much for welcoming me to your platform and to your audience. And I hope that they found value in this conversation.
Absolutely. I know I did. So I thank you so much for coming, and good luck to you and your family, and just keep doing what you're doing. Like, keep sharing, keep talking. And your wife is so cute.
Oh, thank you.
I said that.
I'll let her know. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
You guys just keep going. Like, honestly, I see you guys' YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're working on that. We're
Yeah,
working on that right now. So yeah.
Absolutely.
She has to get used to the camera. She gets a little nervous. So we started with the podcast first. So she's going to be doing the relationship part of my podcast. She'll do the relationship part on Mondays, and then hopefully that'll get her into doing the YouTube.
Into it. I was telling a friend who is not really seasoned in public speaking, but I told her, I said, just record yourself. Listen, like, I've done, I guess 120, maybe 20 something podcasts. That's the reason why I sound so comfortable. That's because I've done it so many times, and not because I started out as an expert. The very first episode, the first thing I said was, okay, so this is the show. And I literally started it just like that. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but that's growth. So yeah, anybody who is trying to get somewhere, just start.
Yeah, no, it's big. Listen, and don't fake it till you make it. That term is not a good term.
Right.
Okay. I always say,
real with that shit.
Be real and role play.
Yeah.
Role play is a lot better than faking it till you make it, because role play is telling me I understand the framework and I'm going to work within that framework to get better. Steve Harvey didn't become a relationship expert overnight. He had to work in that framework first till he got to the point. So for sure. Thank you.
Like, we're like basically done, but I just want to add this because I think that's a really great point. Even people who you think are experts started not being an expert. You know what I mean? Everyone is learning, and that's why, I mean, you can do it too. Just like the gray box guy. All it takes is a little bit of Googling, get you a book, find you a therapist, find you a coach, get started.
For sure. Take action. Get off the sideline, get in the game, for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so that was this week's episode with Chris Ward Jr. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I did. When I was listening back to that, it just made my spirit fly. I felt so good, and it just made me remember everything that I was doing and every goal that I set at that time that we recorded that episode. And I just felt so full and so whole and just ready to do what I need to do. So y'all come back next week or the week after. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be super consistent with this thing, but I'm one person. I have 2 kids. They got a lot of needs, and I have some too. I have to give something to myself as well. So I'll still be here, and you'll still hear from me. So just stay subscribed so that you can know when I drop the next episode. All right. Bye.